Yeah, I know that The War of the Rohirrim hit the screens back in December of last year, but my adoration for Tolkien would have made me feel remiss if I didn't put this movie under a rose-tinted microscope. Reason for the delay is that I wanted to release my 2024 review, launch episode 32 of the Barely Banter podcast, and fit in a stream before I undertook the rigmarole that comes with moving house. That's right, your boy is recording this from a different gaff. I've got a new car too, but that's only because I may or may not have twatted the old one into my former fit Polish neighbour's Volkswagen Passat, lest she forgets I exist. War of the Rohirrim takes place nearly 2 centuries prior to The Lord of the Rings, and it depicts the tale of Hera, the Hoyden-esque daughter of Helm Hammerhand, current king of Rohan. Hera, at the behest of her father, is set to wed a noble Gondorian, the arrangement of which pisses off Dunlending Lord Freka as he wished Hera to betroth his son Wulf in the name of usurping Rohan's throne. This conflict of interest causes a fistfight between Freka and Hammerhand that concludes with the Dunlending's death, inspiring Wulf to vow vengeance upon Helm for sending his dad 6 feet under to dwell with maggots and Richard Hammond's marriage certificate. In case you were unaware, Warner Brothers made The War of the Rohirrim so they could retain the rights to transform Tolkien's work into movies, and I'm guessing that failing to meet a certain deadline would result in said rights returning to the market. When I found out about this way before the trailer dropped, it did raise a red flag, because in most cases when any form of medium, not just film, is a project that has to be made for whatever reason, the end result can be lackluster. My concerns were diluted somewhat when I discovered that some familiar names who contributed significantly to Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy also worked on this feature, not to mention the endorsement it received from Jackson himself. Unfortunately, as the movie was unfolding before my eyes, the aforementioned rose-tinted microscope was gradually becoming more tarnished than Conor McGregor's legacy. For the record, I don't have a problem with War of the Rohirrim being animated. In fact, given the motivation behind its creation, it makes total sense for it to be, because from a technical perspective, anime is easier and much cheaper to fabricate than live action. If anything, I was looking forward to experiencing my favourite author's material from this point of view, especially when I found out that Richard Taylor, Alan Lee and John Howe reprised their respective duties from Jackson's trilogies. Alas, the visuals are inconsistent. The landscapes, weather and architecture are illustrated beautifully. The creatures not so much, especially the Watcher in the water. Fuck knows how or why it travelled to Rohan, but also the nameless thing looked disrespectfully yonic. With that said though, the biggest eye fuck comes courtesy of how Middle-earth's people were portrayed. According to Wikipedia, Creative didn't want to make a cartoon version of Jackson's films. Instead, they opted for a vibe more akin to manga. I get that putting a different spin, which in this example belonged to director Kenji Kamiyama, on whatever the source material of choice is often results in reinvigoration, but sadly that wasn't what materialised here, as the characters simply didn't look like they belonged in Middle-earth. For me, this crippled any chance of immersion, and it really didn't help that the voice actor's dialogue deliverance was predominantly wooden, occasionally dipped out of sync with the visuals, and gave off the impression the actors were recording as they were reading the script for the first time. Speaking of audio, the sound engineering is fucking outstanding. Kudos to the team behind it for perfectly emulating the noises emitted by weapons, nature, objects, people and animals. The horses galloping in particular were a joy to hearken, and do not be surprised at all if The War of the Rohirrim is nominated for accolades in sound editing. Composer Stephen Gallagher will be receiving fuck all nominations for his musical offerings here. In essence, Gallagher takes the most recognisable pieces off of various tracks from Howard Shore's score and connects them with melodic banality. Considering the end credits is stacked with names extremely familiar with Tolkien's lore, there's a surprising lack of substance on the film reel. The action scenes are decently choreographed. The violence is very 12A, and naturally Easter eggs are scattered about, but they're not enough to fulfill a 134-minute runtime, making the Betty Basic plot feel thin, sort of stretched, like butter scraped over too much bread. A huge shame half of you dickheads won't pick up what I just put down without an assist from the internet, but I digress. The War of the Rohirrim is essentially a stepping stone between past and future Peter Jackson-helmed Middle-earth movies. A stepping stone that cost $30 million to make and is riddled with mediocrity. Woefully, you don't have to be a gambler to work out that the odds of it getting a thumbs up from the Tolkien fanbase is less likely than Ian Watkins's shitbox contracting to the circumference of a hockey puck.